Lifestyle Designers. This is Zach here with Secrets of Longevity.com, and today we're going to have a look at the interesting, sometimes controversial, sometimes fun topic of alcohol and how it relates to health and longevity. Now, it goes without saying that the inappropriate and excessive consumption of alcohol, when it's combined with large amounts of it in the form of binge drinking, or combined with pregnancy or breastfeeding or even driving, whether it's a boat, car, airplane, whatever, this definitely leads to ill health in the form of accidents, birth defects, liver issues, blood poisoning, and a whole host of other problems. So we want to avoid that at all costs, eliminate that from our life. It doesn't promote health for ourselves nor those around us. Now, what we're going to be talking about is a few different types of alcohol, their effects on the body, the optimal ways to take in, and what the benefits of it are for longevity. Oh, that's strong. This is an herbal tincture I made. It's a vodka with herbs soaked in it for different periods of time. It's actually a combination of two different ones I've made in the past. And I consume maybe about a tablespoon of tincture total on a daily basis, and I've been doing that for a year or two, pretty regularly. You know, there's days I don't do it, there's days I might do 2 tablespoons. But it's also mixed in with food. I put them in my drinks. You've seen me do that a few times. And I think it's a very beneficial way to take in herbal medicinal qualities and nutrition and tonic herbs. And the alcoholic constituents actually increase the blood flow to the digestive system. They open up the capillaries. You can feel that warm feeling as it, at least harder alcohol, goes down your throat, or even lighter alcohol like wine. You can feel that warmness in your throat as the blood vessels open up, and even in your stomach. So alcohol is absorbed quite quickly in the throat and in the stomach, and it's bringing in and uptaking those nutrients and medicinal qualities of whatever it's mixed in with quite rapidly. So I recommend, if you're going to be taking alcohol in, you're going to be wanting to look at doing it in the way that's the most optimal and has the most health benefits to offset any negatives that could potentially be present from the negative aspects of alcohol. And of course, when it's in small quantities, like 1 to 2 drinks a day maximum, you're really not setting yourself up for damage of any sort through the body. And we know this from studies on alcohol consumption. Even mainstream medicine recommends a drink or 2 a day. And these people, in virtually all these studies, unless they're done by very puritanical scientific types, and they don't do the studies very well, and they often get called on by their peers, but the most accepted studies show that those who drink 1 to 2 glasses of some form of alcohol a day do better health-wise and in longevity than those around them. So a lot of people say, well, alcohol is a poison, you don't want to take any amount of any poison. But as it turns out, any plant food we're consuming contains poisons. Any food has specific aspects of it that certain groups out there attack and label as a reason not to consume that food, whether it's grains for their starches that are indigestible proteins, gluten, etc., or it's meat and it's cholesterol and other factors and fear hormones that are in there. It could be dairy and its problems that it causes in mucus formation. It could be fruit and its high sugar. So any of these food groups or liquid beverage groups you could take and really sort of cherry pick data and really point the finger at them and label them as the worst thing you can do. But when we really sort of step back and look at both the scientific research but also the anthropological research and take our own experiences into account and take all those 3 things into account for making any sort of health decision, we can sort of see what is optimal for longevity and our health. So alcohol, although yes it's a poison, has that effect of opening up the capillaries to aid in the absorption of nutrients, which is partially why alcohol has been consumed with meals throughout the ages, traditionally. And then also some aspects of alcohol consumption that's no longer really present in commercial alcohol is that fermentation, whether it's wine or beer, or even mead, creates B vitamins, beneficial bacteria and all sorts of other things. And when you take these in, it's a source of those things in a traditional dietary situation, or from a tribe or a primal setting in a native culture of a specific region. Certain areas of the world use less than others, but moderate consumption has been recognized for a long time to be beneficial to one's health. If you look at the top, say, 8 longevity cultures around the world that many people are talking about, I'll just list a few off. Loma Linda, California, the Okinawans in Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Ikaria, Greece, Hunzas in the Himalayan regions of Pakistan. All these areas, except Loma Linda, so 1 out of all 8, consume alcohol. And the reason Loma Linda doesn't consume it is because they're puritanical, religious, and that's part of their doctrine not to consume alcohol. Now, the regions with the greatest longevity of these 8, Loma Linda is actually closer to the bottom of having the top longevity rates. Whether that's due to alcohol consumption or whether it's like just outside of LA and there's probably not the cleanest air going, it's hard to say. But this really does highlight that alcohol is not the biggest poison in the world that should be wiped off the face of the earth. A lot of the mainstream, and even, I'm going to say even more so, the holistic health world villainizes alcohol to such an extent that it's reminiscent, in my mind, to a very puritanical point of view that reminds me of some of the traditional so-called health advocates of the early 19th century, or I guess late 19th century, early 20th century. From that time period, people like Dr. Kellogg, who spearheaded a lot of the religious beliefs into the health ideology. So things like eating a high-grain diet, abstaining from sexual activity, circumcision for all the boys. He was actually the one that pushed that onto North America. It wasn't really that popular among Christian populations at the time, but he's the one that really brought that to the forefront, quite unfortunately. But then he also brought in the ideas of alcohol being something that should be avoided. And that goes along with alcohol rising certain feelings of libido and attraction and enhancing fertility in small amounts. And from someone from a very puritanical point of view, that's going to be seen as a bad thing. Now, as we're talking about, alcohol, sex, and religious views, we're going to then go on to talk about testosterone and alcohol consumption. A big negative of alcohol that's often talked about is when you consume it in large quantities on a regular basis, it's actually depressing to testosterone levels, and testosterone is a very vital and fantastic hormone for maintaining youthful aspects of our whole body, from muscle size and function to healthy skin and a healthy libido. But in small quantities, alcohol actually boosts testosterone. And I've got a link below to some references that you can check out. One is about alcohol and testosterone, the other one's more about alcohol and athletic performance. And that second one's actually countering a lot of the ideas out there that alcohol completely wipes out any ability to perform athletically. There's no connection between low amounts of alcohol and decreasing testosterone, but it actually does the opposite. It raises testosterone. You see this in casual drinkers. It's a social stimulant. It helps people bond and interact, and naturally that's going to increase feelings of attraction between people, which is of course healthy, and it's one of the best aspects of alcohol and should be how it's used in terms of helping connect people to each other. Shouldn't be the only way people connect, but it can be one way and a good way in terms of large groups of people when it's done appropriately. Now, alcohol consumption, when it's taken in quantities of excess, for instance, one study looked at beer drinkers, and if they consumed 3 glasses of beer or 3 beers a day for 3 weeks, which is a significant amount of time to be drinking that regularly in that amount, they had a roughly 6.8% decrease in testosterone levels across the board, across anyone who was doing this. Now that is significant. I personally wouldn't want that to happen to my testosterone levels, so I'm not going to engage in that kind of behavior. But even if you were doing that, it's not that significant of a drop. And a lot of people that talk about alcohol in this way, affecting athletic performance, are really overemphasizing and over-vilifying it, in my opinion. So I was once at a health lecture with a popular health advocate in the world out there of holistic health, And I actually just innocently asked a question of what did this speaker, who also spoke about longevity and other topics that I find very fascinating, what they thought about these different cultures that all consumed alcohol according to National Geographic, looking at the Blue Zone specifically. And they were quite rude to me, and they actually said, well, to answer the question of the alcoholic in the back of the room there, and I was just like, come on, seriously? Is that... I know he's kind of joking, but he was definitely not open to any sort of looking at the results that are quite apparent in these traditional cultures. He actually said, you know, that's just what they choose to focus on. It's like, well, if they're all doing it, that could very well be a factor that's aiding in their health and vitality. So to sum up the benefits of alcohol quickly here, it increases insulin sensitivity, which is a great thing, especially for type 2 diabetics. Helps the uptake of sugar from the blood, and that's beneficial, obviously, in the long run, when so many causes of aging is from a decrease in insulin sensitivity in the blood, and that eventually leads to heart disease, diabetes, stroke, etc. So that's a massive factor in alcohol's benefits for the cardiovascular system. But there's also the effect of lowering blood pressure, again in small quantities and higher quantities, it raises it, increasing HDL, cholesterol, and also it can help remove fatty deposits or fatty streaks from the arteries if it's a red wine. So this is specifically talking about resveratrol. And a lot of people say you can't get enough resveratrol from red wine, but if you make sure it's a very dark red wine like Merlot, Pinot Grigio, or Canino from Sardinia, Italy, that area in Italy where there's that hot pocket of centenarians, they actually process their wine in a way where they leave the grape seeds and skins intact in the barrels for much longer. They don't pull those out until the wine's almost pretty much done. So it's much richer, darker, and that's going to have higher resveratrol content, which is fantastic for longevity. Has sort of the caloric restriction effect without the caloric restriction, and then it also removes over time fatty deposits in the arteries, which is fantastic. So if you're going to drink on a regular basis, make sure, in my opinion, that it's one that also has additional benefits of utilizing that opening of the capillaries through the digestive system. Take it as an herbal remedy almost, like I was just drinking here tonight, and then, or take it as a wine, specifically a dark red wine that has the resveratrol content, or you can make your own herbal mead, which is something I find an increasing interest that I might do future videos on, where you can create your own sort of tincture alcohol that doesn't have as strong of an alcohol content. It's more like in line with a wine. It's not like a grain alcohol, which is up to 40%, between 30 and 40%. It's actually like a wine where it's not as hard on the throat, because very hard alcohol is actually more detrimental in the sense that it can increase your risk of throat cancer. But mead, which is fermented honey and water, and you mix other herbs in that, and that's a great way to get the properties of the herbs into your system through the opening of the capillaries and increased absorption rate that creates. And finally, I'm just going to touch briefly on the fact that beer is one of the most detrimental drinks in the realm of alcohol, or at least commercial beers. So since the Act of 1515, which was put into state by a puritanical organization, a Christian group, I think it was the Protestants, and they forced all alcohol, or rather all beer that was being created, to have hops in it. And hops is highly estrogenic, which is what's characteristic of beer drinkers being sleepy, very low sex drive, because if you have a predominance of estrogen in your body, you're lowering fertility drastically. And also it's a sedative, has a sedative effect, which is not desired by anyone, but it was desired by the Protestant church when they were trying to lower people's libido, because this was seen as sinful. And that attitude towards alcohol, in my opinion, has been put across the board with these groups and advocates in health that tend to have a fairly religious background. And I don't think religion mixes well with health, or anything for that matter. So if you're able to find a traditional beer that's made without hops, there are little smaller companies that are doing that, I believe, at this time. that could be somewhat beneficial if that's something you enjoy. But I like raw alcohols that haven't been cooked personally. So mead or wine is a great option in that instance. So take care, enjoy your alcohol responsibly, and embrace life without limits.